Hi everyone, welcome back to No Sugar with Everything Krause.
All right. Where's the energy from Katia today? She been up since 5:30 and he ain't been working.
5.
5. All right.
I've been up since 5 a.m. I've lived a whole life. But like, in all honesty, I feel like I haven't done as much as I thought I was going to be able to like get done because I had to make the sourdough.
Well, that's a
And
part of your task list right now.
I know, but it just like really took a lot longer than I thought. And like, I also did make breakfast. I went to Whole Foods and then I made the sourdough.
I don't know where the mornings go. Honestly, I feel like I can set my alarm at 4 a.m. and by the time I'm done what I need to be done, it's still like noon. And I'm like, all right,
Yeah, and
okay.
I was a little thrown off today. So I had my first personal training session with a client.
Whoop, whoop, whoop,
Whoop,
whoop.
whoop, whoop, whoop,
That's
whoop.
big. Katia has her first client, everyone.
Yeah, no, it
Making waves
was
in the fitness industry.
very exciting, and I was up super early because of that, which was nice because by the time I was done, I didn't leave like as soon as the session was done though. I was like doing other things. So by the time I got home, then mom was getting ready to leave for work. So I like went downstairs and made sure she had her lemon water. I started making her tea. Like I was just like in the kitchen doing other things. And then I was starving, like literally so hungry by like 7:15. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
literally gonna faint. So I don't know what time I even started making breakfast. Like what time did I call you? Almost 8, I feel like.
Yeah, you called me around like no, 7:40ish because
Yeah,
I was
so
like up. I was up looking at the phone being like, "Oh, this was the time that I wanted to be like leaving for my run." And you
yeah.
called me. So 7:40ish.
So I was making breakfast then, and then I ate breakfast and went to Whole Foods because I had to get bread flour for the sourdough. And then when I got home, I immediately started making the loaves. So we had to do 10 loaves. And I like had to split it in between the big bowls because they weren't all gonna fit in one bowl. So that added like a whole nother element. And yeah, that just like it took a while to like feel like get it all.
Well, you did a lot this morning. I mean, you went to
Yeah,
Whole
no,
Foods,
no,
you
I'm
made
not saying like
sourdough.
I didn't do a lot. It was just like I don't know, like the fact that it's 11:30, I'm like I don't know how to feel so far.
Yeah.
You know
Well,
what I mean?
everything that you
But
did this morning in a way, Gatiri, was added onto your life this past week. Like low key, like the
yeah.
sourdough and the first
Hmm.
personal training client and the babysitting, like that was on added on last week. So that's why I feel like you feel behind because you haven't tackled any of the things that like you normally do during your week, but you just had to
Hmm.
like wake up earlier to get done everything that would have taken away from your time today to do everything that you normally do.
Yeah, and it was just showed me that, we always say this plan or plan to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Monday and Tuesdays, I'm gonna be done by 6:30. So what do I want to do? I'm not gonna come home and go back to bed like I'm up, right? Like what can I do from 6:30 on till let's say 6:30 to 9 that's gonna make me feel good or like get things
Yeah.
done and be proactive with my life in that way. So I was just like, this was like my first session, obviously. And I just been like, okay, next time, just plan a little better for when you get back. Okay, like what's the first thing on your to-do list that like you can just like get this done? Um, and that'll make me feel better. So I don't like feel
Yeah.
bad. I just feel like when I look at the time, I'm like, wait, how have I been up since 5 a.m.? And like I just feel like I've like done a lot, but I haven't at the same time. It's like that just like everything I did, I didn't think was actually on my to-do list, but it was at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
And like
Well, I'm happy you.
I feel like I forget that like okay, I went to Whole Foods and I had to get bread flour. Like that does take time. You know what I mean?
Takes
Like
30 minutes.
just cuz Whole Foods is close doesn't mean it's going to be a 30-second thing. Like you got to
Yeah.
drive there, go in, get the flour, leave, check out, do all that stuff. That those little moments add up. And then measuring out all the flour, the water, the salt, the starter, like doing all of it is so many different steps for the actual sourdough process. And I'm like, I feel like I'm just thinking in my mind, like, oh, that should have taken like 1 minute. But like,
Yeah,
why
but it
would it
takes
take one
like
minute?
takes 15.
So anyway, it's just like a good note for myself
Yeah,
for,
so don't beat yourself up too much.
yeah, exactly. And honestly, this is one of the reasons I'm like excited for fall. And I honestly am so against everyone who's saying like I'm so over summer, like give me the fall weather, the fall clothes. And like I do love that. I love wearing being able to like layer or wear jackets and like the crispy fall air. I do love it, but the reason I'm excited for fall, and I don't want to wish summer away, the reason I'm excited is because, like everyone always talks about, you tend to fall out of routine in the summer. You
Mm-hmm.
tend to kind of go with the flow. We've talked about how we've really been trying to embrace that, but there comes a point where then I start craving more of a routine. And as we've talked about many times, the weekends we go to Cape May in the summer. So like you don't have your weekends to get other household things done. And
Mm-hmm.
now I understand why mom growing up would always be like, I can't get anything done when I go to Cape May because I'm in Cape May all weekend. And then you want to get stuff done at the house. And like the only time to do it is during the week when like a million other things are happening.
Yeah.
So I am excited for fall in a sense of setting up like a good routine for myself. I do have like a really set schedule going into the fall, and that's amazing. So planning around the things that I do have set to get other stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for that.
I have just a side note off of that, I have a very unknown fall. So I don't feel as similar as other people because I'm like you, I'm very against everyone who's just in love with fall. I'm not against them. I just disagree with you all when
Mm-hmm.
you're in love with fall and just counting down the days till it, because I'm a big believer in letting the season be written out until the season is over. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I let summer go until September 20th, and when September 20th hits and I know like fall literally is starting, that's when I'll start to embrace it. But I
Mm-hmm.
hate jumping the gun early, so I'm just like you in that. But I have a very unknown fall coming up in a sense of it's going to be a lot different this year. It's the first year that I'm not going to be in undergrad. I have a few decisions. I don't really want to speak about my fall yet because I have a few more decisions I feel like I need to make before
Mm-hmm.
going into the fall that will set up my fall, but it's just overall going to be very unknown. So I'm not looking forward to it. I was feeling very anxious about it, but now I've kind of shifted in a sense where I'm like, I'm excited for that discomfort because I know I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
grow a lot. So I just wanted to add that in there because I don't know, it's going to be an interesting fall for us both.
Yeah, and discomfort is a good way of describing it just because discomfort is literally the unknown of like not knowing like what's going to happen, like what's to come. Like every year is different. When you were going back to school, every year was going to
Mm-hmm.
be different, but you almost had like a gist of what it was going to be like.
Yeah.
And then now it's going to look different than your past 4 years have looked.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good way to kind of lead us into our topic anyway. This was kind of almost like a hot topic this weekend. We were on the beach and we were talking about, I think, just like working out in general. Obviously, I was talking about like how I had my first client on Monday morning, and we were talking about with someone who said, if I have to work out after work, I just like dread it all day. And if I have to, I'm like, okay, we'll get it done in the morning. That, and if like you know that, then maybe you need to like go to bed earlier, wake up earlier to work out in the morning, right? And they're like, well, then I'll think about it all night. Like I just don't enjoy working out that much. I like
I
honestly
don't
hate
enjoy
it.
working out.
Yeah, like I hate it. And like to each his own, totally understandable. But then Isabel made a point and was like, sometimes you have to do things that you hate because it's good for you. And I feel like fitness is such a good example of that because there are so many benefits of working out and moving your body other than just physical. And then it's also like getting yourself to the point of having a workout routine, getting yourself up in the morning, or even going. I think it's harder to get home from work and then go work out. Like, personally, props to all those people. But it's like all of that is uncomfortable and it kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how many years that I've been doing it, now I'm a personal trainer. Like, there's times when I will dread a workout and I'm like, oh my God, this is the last thing I want to do, right? It's uncomfortable almost every time. There's a
Yeah.
slight discomfort in it every single time. Like, when we wake up in Cape May and like, I'm like, all right, is like, let's get up. We got to go on a run. Like, do you think either of us want to get up and go on a run? Honestly, no. When we have to,
And we
when we,
love working out. Like we are
yeah,
passionate about working out. But those
exactly.
moments, oh, when the eyelids are fluttering open, takes every ounce of my being to get myself out of my bed.
And put sneakers on and be like, I'm gonna have to be moving my legs at a steady pace.
Yeah. Well, and I actually heard that when I said like you should be doing something that sucks. I actually heard that from someone, you guys probably know him, David Goggins. He was the one that like first heard in one of the Instagram reels. Like he said, I wake up and do something that sucks every single day, first thing in the morning. I start my day off shitty. And he said, and I like remember hearing that and being like, whoa, like why would I ever do that? Like first. And then when he went on to explain it, he really described how it is not an action that is just to keep his fitness goals in check. Like, it's not like he does stuff that sucks just because he wants to be fit. He does stuff that sucks to train his mind to get used to hard things. So when he faces hard things in his life, he just does them. He
Mm-hmm.
just tackles them and he overcomes them. And that is really what kind of inspired me to like always tackle the hard things that I have to do or never let me not do them. Like if there's a
Mm-hmm.
hard obstacle in front of me, if I don't do it because I know it's hard, I will know deep down in the back of my head that that's why I'm avoiding it. And then I'll have to do it because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, you have to do a hard thing. What does this mean for later in your life? You know what I mean? So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to kind of give reference to where that saying came from, just in case you guys heard it on the internet somewhere as well. It
Yeah.
did come from David Goggins, not me.
I also think that our society paints this picture that like everything we do, we have to be in love with and feel good and just align with it completely. And I'm all for like feeling good when you're working out, like doing workouts that make you feel good when you're doing it, right? Like finding something that doesn't feel like pure torture the entire time, even when you're
Hmm.
done it, you're like, that sucked. I hated it. Like whatever it is. I completely understand the meaning behind it, but I feel like so much of our society has taken it to a point of like only do jobs that you actually love, which take a look at all the jobs. Like 9 times out of 10, you're not going to love your job completely. You know what I mean? Like everyone
Hmm.
probably wishes they maybe were doing something different or cooler. Like,
Yeah.
let's just be real. And I just feel like people get so used to being like, oh, I have to love what I do. I have to love my morning routine and love my workouts and just live in this like happiness all the time. And I don't feel like that's where change happens. That's where growth
Yeah.
happens. Growth happens in the discomfort. And we have talked about that so many times. But that's really where it does lie is in your uncomfortable feelings, your discomfort when you're working out, when you're starting a new job, when you're taking a risk on a business venture. Like that is really where growth and transformation happens. And I just think with social media now and all these different, I know we're harping on fitness because it's so easy to kind of relate this to fitness, but like all these different workouts for women, like being more mindful with your body and doing all these, trying different things out. It's just some of it I agree with and some of it I disagree with. And I think when you said like you have to do things that you don't like all the time, it made me realize like that's exactly what our society is putting us against almost.
Hmm.
And not everyone, but it's just like a mass thing of sitting in this like comfort, not offending anyone, not saying the wrong thing. Like, God forbid you say the wrong thing, right?
Hmm.
Something
Yeah,
slips,
like
boom,
immediately canceled. Like you
boom,
can't even
canceled.
slip up.
Yeah, like you can't grow from that. And it's like we're getting so used to being so like safe, and like so sheltered almost. And I think that's a slippery slope to go down because if we keep going down that, like imagine where our society will be in 10 years. Like,
Hmm.
what is it going to look like? You're literally not going to be able to be yourself without being scared of crossing a line, someone's imaginary line that they've set.
I think that's actually already the downfall of our society so far.
Mm-hmm.
Like where the trajectory our society is on feels like a downward slope right now. It doesn't feel like it's going positively. And I think but part of that a big part of that reason is what you just said, Gatiri. It's that mindset of instant gratification. Like
Mm-hmm.
doing something and immediately feeling the satisfaction of doing it. And that's never how life is. Like, life is all about the journey of living through life to get the prize at the end, to go to heaven at the end. Like, even that shows you delayed gratification. But now our society is so shifted towards, I went to the gym, I want to see the results right away. When in reality, the hard thing to do is to go to the gym every single day for 3 months, but that's how you get the results. But
Mm-hmm.
people aren't seeing those results right after one day. So they're not being instantly gratified. It's a delayed gratification practice. But
Mm-hmm.
because they're not seeing the results, they give up on it right away. And that's why this conversation this past weekend really sparked it, because it was like, I've tried everything. I don't like running. And I'm like, well, what about the gym? Because the gym is really where I found my peace. Then I found
Mm-hmm.
my peace in yoga sculpt when I was tired of the gym. Like, you know what I mean? It's just an ever changing landscape. But I feel like in everything that our society does, they just seek instant gratification.
Mm-hmm. That's why social media is such a weapon of the mind in terms of like scrolling. It is literally the definition of instant gratification. The videos I watch on TikTok that I get stuck on at night are 30 seconds to a minute long. Instantly gratifying, and then you move on for the next instant gratification. And another point to what you were just saying, yesterday I was actually listening to on the Skinny Confidential, Lauren and Michael's personal trainer was on. And I didn't finish the episode fully, but he was talking about how so many times people will come and be like, I want results now. I want blah, blah, now. And Lauren and Michael have been working with him for 3 years. And Lauren talks about a lot how she's been trying to lose all this baby weight. So she lost 60 pounds over the course of 3 years. Like, that's a long time to be in the gym to finally, like, now she's looked good for a while, but like now she finally feels like she saw the results that she's been wanting to.
Yeah.
So that was a long-term goal for her, was lose 60 pounds. And the way his or her personal trainer described it was, I like to ask people what their long-term goals are. So for her example, lose 60 pounds. Everything she was doing in those past 3 years were all short-term goals. So people, like you were saying, when they're like, oh, I want results and I want it after a week of being in the gym, like, no, you're not going to, but let's set short-term goals that you can actually achieve in 3 months that are going to lead to the long-term goal. And instead of looking at it as like, oh, the long-term goal is lose 60 pounds in 60 days, which is like an absurd thing to do, but it's like you're never going to achieve that. So then you'll
Yeah.
never actually stay committed to it and stay consistent with it. But just the way he painted it of like, people think that you only have to focus, like you can only focus on one goal, when in reality you have a long-term goal, and everything you do leading up to that goal, it are the short-term goals. Like, that's what you're
Well,
hitting to get to the long term.
and honestly, that's almost essential, especially if you do struggle with that delayed gratification factor. If because it's delayed gratification or delayed results, that's why you can't seem to get motivated enough to stay with it or disciplined enough to stay with it. Those short-term goals are really good little gratifications to have along the way. So it's like, what keeps you going if you just have one big gratification at the end with nothing in between? Like, now, 3 years from now, that's really hard to stick with it and stay disciplined. But if you have small wins that are constantly boosting your confidence and showing you results and kind of pushing you and propelling you forward, you're more likely to reach that long-term goal. So I
Yeah,
love that. I
exactly.
love
Because
that.
it keeps you in line too to keep moving forward. Because, like, I just look at it as like a nice long path, and every short term goal is like something you knock over, right? Like, once you finish it, you knock it over and you move on to the next peg. Like, yeah, so it moves you along. Like you said, if you don't have any of those goals, you just look all the way ahead at the 3 years, it just feels a million years away. You're like, 3 years, I gotta do this for 3 years, are you nuts? And now, what, how long have we been working out? Like, when I think about when I really started working out, I would say I started working out in high school, but like more consistently probably in college. Well, I was 18 years old, I'm 25 years old now.
Yeah.
That's 7 years of working out consistently. That's a long time. If you had told me when I was 18, you're going to be doing this almost every single day, 5 to 6 days out of the week for the next 7 years, I'd be like, that sounds brutal. I don't want that life,
Yeah.
at that point. So it's just, you have to break it down
But
because,
that's a prime example of you doing something. Like, this is a prime example of what we're talking about. Do you, looking back on the past 7 years, was it brutal?
yeah.
Oh, was it?
Well, no, like, it's always like trying to make a point.
I was
I
like
don't
trying to
mean,
make a point, Katira just fucking obliterated it.
no, it wasn't like brutal in a sense of like I hated my life every single day for the past 7 years. No, it was like brutal in a sense of like I was getting uncomfortable. I stepped into
Yeah,
a
okay,
level of
okay,
discomfort. Yeah.
okay. I see. Thanks.
But
Thanks
okay,
for.
let's go back.
I was saying the point I was trying to make was that going back to we mentioned this conversation on the beach this past weekend, how the person hates working out, and I totally get that. You're never gonna like it at the beginning, and this is the point I was trying to make, is like at the beginning of that 7 years, if you would have thought 7 years from now my life is gonna be brutal if I do that every day, probably because you didn't love working out. It was a really hard thing for you to do. But now where you are in your relationship with fitness, I mean, you're literally a personal trainer now. I
Yeah.
don't think you could be more in love with fitness, and to see that shift from like starting at hating it to falling in love with it over 7 years is really cool and eye-opening, because I want to point that out to you all, because you're never going to like it at the start. It's something you need to fall in love with. It's something that you need to feel those results and those mini wins from, that make you realize, wow, this is a great thing that I'm doing. Like, that's what is rewarding about doing hard things. Hard things are always going to suck. There's never going to be a positive about something hard. The positive is what you choose to take away from it.
Exactly. And that's why we do harp so much on finding something that you can fall in love with in terms of fitness. Because, like you said in the beginning, also 7 years ago, I wasn't doing what I'm doing right now in terms of fitness. Like, I didn't even know what yoga sculpt was. And I've taken a big step back from the gym because of my schedule right now. And if you would have asked me 7 years ago if I would be okay with that when I was in the gym every day, I would be like freaking out, be like, what do you mean you're
Mm-hmm.
not in the gym every day? Like, how are you surviving? How does your body look? Right? Like, I
Yeah.
would be freaking out about that. But finding something that, even though especially when I'm a student in one of the classes, like if I go and take a yoga sculpt class, I might be like excited for the class, but if someone really asks me on a deeper level, like when I'm sitting on that mat and the instructor walks in, I'm like, here I go. Here we
Yeah.
go. Like, let's just get this hour over with.
Yeah.
And then midway through, I'm not even thinking about the time. And then by the time I'm done, I'm like, there it is. Like, there is that amazing feeling that I knew I was going to feel. And that's exactly why I showed up today, because I told myself I would. And so you just feel so like lifted up by yourself and by
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing. So, like you said, one, you're never going to love it at the start. And it's not the feeling that you'll get at the beginning of the workout that you crave. It's the feeling at the end of the workout. I always say
Mm-hmm.
you will never regret a workout. When have you ever regretted moving your body?
Literally never.
Never.
Ever. Ever. It's
Literally
impossible to.
never.
Why would you ever regret burning calories?
Yeah, it's just like you literally will never regret it, because the science behind working out and what it does to your endorphins and just the rush of dopamine, all of that is like psychologically the greatest feeling in the world. So I just feel like people so often think like, oh, if I don't like it in the first 10 minutes, I'm never going to like it. Or if I can't get a good routine in the first week, can't get a consistent flow in, I'm never going to be able to hold on to this. And that is like literally couldn't be more far from the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I couldn't believe in something less than that, like a statement like that, because I truly think like when you put your mind to something and you just accept the fact that it's going to be hard and it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but every step you take towards your long-term goal will benefit you and make you better in so many different ways too. Because like you said in the beginning, it teaches you how to do uncomfortable things in all other aspects of life,
Yeah.
because that hard workout that you did before work might make you, obviously you're going to feel good before you start your day, and then okay, say something pops up at work that you're like, wow, this is really stressful, like I'm a little overwhelmed, or it in the past might have made you like super anxious and not even be able to like make a decision or move forward because it made you so anxious. Now that you've already tackled like one hard thing in the beginning of the day, imagine how you're going to be able to tackle that problem or whatever arose like with ease. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's really what I feel like doing hard things helps with, like everything else in life, because life is
Well,
hard.
yeah, I was gonna say when I'm on, that's actually a funny point because when I'm in my most like strict routine, when I have to be because I have classes, I have homework, and I have no other choice but to live this routine life, I am the hardest version of myself in a sense
Mm-hmm.
of like mental strength because I feel like there's so many seasons where I go through at school, like this past spring, not the past fall, really, where I was just like my mental grit was on a different level. No one fazed me, nothing fazed me. Like I
Mm-hmm.
literally, I don't remember the last time I cried in the fall. It was like I didn't cry for all the fall, and I was like, "What the hell is happening?" And it was really when I got into that strict routine and really disciplined myself. I was just doing stuff that I was waking up at 5:45 in the morning every single day of the fall. I was doing
Mm-hmm.
something I really didn't want to do, and it just made me so mentally hard. It was crazy. It's just
Mm-hmm.
funny to think back on that and realize how with discipline comes kind of like your personality may change a bit too.
Yeah, because it seeps into other areas. And people talk all the time about, like, oh, in relationships, for example, like you get comfortable too. Like, even if, like, maybe like you're somewhat falling out of love with that person, like, let's just use an extreme example. Like, you don't know if like you're connected anymore, but you've been dating for 5 years. People literally get comfortable in the relationship and they're scared of the discomfort which will come with ending
Yeah.
that relationship, moving on, having to quote unquote start over in another relationship, who knows when. And I imagine that's very hard. I've never been in that situation, but that's just another example where you can apply it, like doing something hard for the greater outcome, for the long-term goal. So
Oh,
like,
I have an
okay,
example.
go for it.
I just have an example that's so applicable to, I feel like, our world of situationships
Mm-hmm.
because Kateri knows this. Which Kateri and I discussed, like, I haven't even discussed this with you guys, but we'll get to it one day. A situationship, I would call it, that I was
Yeah.
recently in this past year. I feel it was deeper than a situationship for me personally at least. But when it came to like kind of a head at the end, I had a conversation with you, Kateri, and I said, I know the hard thing to do right now. Like, I know the answer. What I'm praying to God, that's why I'm so upset about it, because I know the true answer and it's a really hard thing to do and I don't want to do it. And it was to ultimately like walk away from that situationship because it was not serving me and it wasn't really aligning with like what I wanted for my future or
Your
how I wanted
long-term
to.
goals.
My long-term goals.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I wanted anymore. And I had to make like kind of the hard decision to really just remove myself from that environment, even though I liked him so, so much. Like, even when I was walking away, I was like, I don't want to like not answer this text right now. I don't want to not answer this. But I had to make that hard decision for the long-term gratification of like a better marriage one day. Like, who knows who's meant to be in my life? Who knows if that situation I'm not like, you know what I mean? Like, I have no idea who I'm going to end up with, but
Yeah.
for right now, it wasn't working. And I had visions of grandeur for the marriage that I've always dreamed of in my life. And I was like, I'm not going to get in the way of that by choosing the easy factor of like not walking away from someone that I like because I like him now. And in reality, I know deep down that it's not going to give me the life I want. Like, what's
Exactly.
harder? What's harder, walking away now or ending in divorce in the future? What's the harder decision to make? I'll choose
Exactly.
now.
Easy
So,
now, harder later, harder now, easier later. Like it
yeah.
really is. That's kind
I
of
know
like
that
the
sounds silly, but I just thought that was like a good example
no,
because like
it's so true.
I'm always an advocate of like, oh, make the hard decision now. Like, I always tell you guys to make that hard decision now. And I told Kateri in that moment, like, wow, it's always been a bit easier for me to make the hard decision. This is one where I really don't want to make it. And and I actually pushed it off for about a few weeks. Like, Kateri saw me push it off for a few weeks and I got to a breaking point where I was like, oh, I have to make the decision. Like, I have to
Yeah.
do the hard thing.
Exactly.
And then it happened. So don't worry, everyone. It's relatable in a sense where if you need some time to make that hard decision, go ahead, take all the time you need, but you're gonna have to make it eventually. And also
Exactly.
that's like another thing I want to go into is nothing good in life ever comes easy. So you better get used to this now. Like, if you're like, oh, I'm not interested in working out, so I don't need to worry about doing the hard thing. Guess what? This lesson is applicable in I think every single area of life. You'll always have to do something hard in order to reap a reward. So if you don't get used to it now, it's going to bite you in the ass later. Like, I'm telling you guys, you want to get comfortable with this feeling of being uncomfortable. You just do. One more thing I want to add to what I was just saying about really getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is that it's actually quite easy when you break it down mentally what that discomfort is. So what I mean by that is when normally I'm in an uncomfortable situation, I like sit to myself and I'm like, why am I uncomfortable? It's because I don't know the next step to take. I don't know where the next step will take me. I don't know anything that's going to happen from the point that I am standing and beyond. I only know where I am in the past. And that's normally why I'm uncomfortable. And I'm like, okay, what can I do to control what could happen in the future to ease my mind? And then when I do everything that I could control, I kind of put myself at peace because I'm like, well, I did everything I could do. Whatever's coming for me, I'll learn how to handle. And it's silly of me to think that whatever is coming is something bad because it could be a great opportunity that could transform my entire life. And that gets me really excited to dive more into that uncomfortable feeling because especially when something good comes from discomfort, you're kind of like, whoa, I want to do that again. So I just
Exactly.
wanted to point that out because when I really sat with that perspective of it, I was finding myself wanting to place myself in uncomfortable
Yeah,
situations.
and you find yourself getting excited then again about the future and getting excited about not knowing what's to come because when you're in a situation where you're comfortable, but you know like you were saying, the decision to get out of it was uncomfortable for you, that is the scary part. But then
Mm-hmm.
when you start thinking more positively, like, well, who knows what's on the other side for me? Like, why am I thinking it's going to be bad? It's almost scarier to stay than it is to leave.
Yeah.
Like the scary part turns to be like not making the hard decision and
Yeah.
not doing the hard thing.
No,
And then you
literally.
kind of like flip-flop in your mind like what it means for you.
Yeah. Well, because if you don't make the hard decision, ultimately, you're not going to live the better life, I feel
Yeah.
like.
And you're probably going to have to make it one day.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to bite you. It's going to come at you one day. This is actually reminding me of a conversation I had with this kid before I graduated, and he had one more year left of school. And we were sitting in the classroom, and he looked across the desk at me, and he was like, "Aren't you scared to graduate?" And at that point in time, I was a bit shaky in a sense of like, "What's my next steps?" But I sat with that question, and I literally looked back at him and answered and said, I can't be scared because I'm too excited about the potential of my future. And I remember he looked at me and was like he was just like jaw dropped. Like,
Yeah.
what a thought. Like, what a way to look at it. And in that moment, I realized that I kind of changed his perspective on what the future could be. And then I realized that it was all up to us to either choose to see it that it could be really scary or choose to see that it could be really unknown and amazing.
Exactly. But like almost everything we're saying, really the gist of it is that discomfort shouldn't be feared because it really is the catalyst for change and for growth and transformation and just excitement. Like it's really where these new amazing opportunities are born, whether it's business and fitness, career, relationships, everything that is good is on the other side of that hard decision, that hard obstacle, that hard opportunity, just whatever it is that you're going through in that moment. So it really shouldn't be feared. Like it
Yeah.
really should. I don't want to say it should excite you, but there's ways to turn that fear into excitement. And exactly what Isabel was saying, I feel like is a great way to do it. But looking at changing your perspective can really change how you feel about that discomfort.
Which is why we wanted to talk about this on the podcast, because this conversation this past weekend really sparked the idea in our head that like, wow, people view that that discomfort as really scary. Let's kind of break that barrier and show them that it can be something really amazing.
Exactly.
But also just the fact that instant gratification, we need to bust that. We need to bust that shit in the ass because, like Kateri said, it's the downfall of our society.
And if you are even someone
Which I
who's
could have
like,
gone off on.
well, I do work out every day, or I do feel like I place myself in uncomfortable situations, maybe challenge yourself with something even harder. Like, right? Like, what's something that you've maybe been avoiding? What's something that you would never do? Maybe it's taking a cold shower in the morning, turning it on for 1 minute, 2 minutes. That's hella uncomfortable. I haven't done that. I freaking hate when the water is cold on me. Maybe tomorrow morning I should challenge myself. I'll get home from my personal training and hop in the shower and freeze my ass off because that is something I literally don't want to do with every fiber of my being. Like literally even saying that now, I'm like, don't say that out loud, Kateri. Don't be doing that shit. But maybe that's something I need to do so that I can continue to place myself in better situations or riskier situations even to propel my life forward. Great. I'm gonna have to take a cold ass shower tomorrow.
You got to.
I was just trying to think of like an extreme, like uncomfortable situation. Like, okay, I know I'm waking up early. I have to wake up early. I'm gonna go work out.
I went through a period of cold showers, remember? My hair's looking so, remember how you were like, your hair dried nicely? It's like frizzing up on these headphones.
I need to get my hair cut ASAP, Rocky, like for real.
Going back to the cold showers, remember when I went through that period where I literally, guys, I could not get in the shower without mentally convincing myself that it had to be cold. Like, because every time I got in, I was like, I have to do the hard thing. Like, I was like obsessed with doing hard things. And I was taking only cold showers for literally over a month, and I completely lost my period. So,
facts.
Don't know. Felt like that placed, for all the girlies on here, I felt like that placed a little bit too much stress on my body.
Yeah.
And it literally took my body.
Maybe to the extent that you were doing.
Well, yeah, I did it every single day.
It wasn't all or nothing type gal.
Yeah.
And God forbid it like started at a minute. Had to be like shampoo and conditioner too. Like I'm going to be lucky if I make 30 seconds tomorrow.
Oh, my hair's driving me bonkers. Yeah. No, you'll do 30 seconds. You don't give yourself enough credit.
I know, but like I hate the cold water in the shower.
Yeah, actually, you get quite used to it. It's pretty nice.
I'd rather submerge my whole body than like get the freaking sprinkles on like random parts of my body, but
yeah, I did go in the ocean this morning after my run.
Oh, nice. Oh, you know what's funny is I always say warm. Like I would rather submerge my whole body, but like if I had an ice, like a cold tub out there, like would I really rather?
Yeah, like the shower, at least you get like breaths of warmth.
I know. That's like the typical excuse of like, I would rather just like dunk my whole body than do the shower. It's like, yeah, okay, good to hear.
It's like then get a cold plunge.
Yeah, seriously. Like I'll believe it when I see it, like facts. But
anyway. I hope you guys got the point across that you need to do shit that sucks.
No, like for real, you have to. And if you don't feel like you do things that suck every day because you're in such a routine, then find something that sucks to you and do it.
Yeah.
And figure it out.
And when you fall in love with that one, find another thing.
Yeah.
Because I always fall in love with the things that I hate.
Yeah.
Like exactly. running used to suck to me. Well, it sucks right now again. But when we were training for Broad Street, running used to really suck to me. And then I used to get so excited to wake up for my runs. I would dread the gym. Oh, what a time. What a time in my life.
What a time, what a time, what a time.
But also it's just a good lesson to know for the rest of your life, because there's always going to be lows, there's always going to be highs, but you need to know how to deal with those lows. And if you're constantly in a high, you're never going to know how to combat the low. So it's really important to place yourself in a low position to feel kind of what it's like to be low.
There's never a success story that with no lows. Like
There's
literally.
always going to be another
The
mountain.
I'm always
always
gonna wanna make it move.
We're so off. I wonder if the audio is off because like I sang that line an hour ago.
Yeah, that's how I feel about you.
I have a suggestion for something for you guys to do. It is actually not hard. It's probably the easiest thing that you do this day. It is going to be to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Instagram, follow us on Instagram, interact with No Sugar Podcast. Please, we are trying to grow and spread this message to everyone else so that they can reap the benefits and live a healthy and awesome life as well.
Yes, literally. Like it's all about getting 1% better every day. Like who doesn't want to get a little bit better every single day?
Yeah, send this to someone who needs to hear that they have to do shitty stuff. If you notice someone isn't living in an instant gratification life cycle, send this to them subconsciously. They're gonna be like, all right, you
Like, yo, I
added me.
listened to this today, really motivated me. I'm feeling good. Like I just want to spread that good energy.
They're like, nah, they're gonna block you.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you.
Okay. We hope you all enjoyed this episode. Go ahead and pop off in the comments. Let's get the YouTube comment section going a little bit. If you had a favorite part that we said, a section that you liked, just jot it down
Or
in
what's
the
something
comments.
hard you did today that was
Yeah,
hard for you.
Exactly. Give some listeners even more ideas of like things they can challenge themselves with. But we would love to hear from you guys. So with all that being said, we hope you have an amazing rest of your day, an amazing rest of your week, and we will see you next time.